Hey folks, happy Friday. It is January 23rd, pretty early in the morning, not quite 9 a.m. yet. I'm just writing a list of things I need to do. Really, I'm updating my list. I wrote this yesterday. I had a list for in preparation for this layoff conversation I had yesterday. I had several things that I wanted to do before that conversation took place, and then I had some things that I need to do in preparation for the layoff or unemployment. So I went through last night, and I think in the last clip I had shared I was doing the scholarship application. So I finished that. I need to call a couple of places to cancel some subscriptions and services that I had scheduled out, and we'll need to reschedule those for once I have steady income coming in. So I'm gonna do that this morning. A couple of places don't open until 10, so I need to wait, but I at least wanted to write it down so that I wouldn't forget. I'm gonna call my grandmother in a little bit, probably make some oatmeal. I need to tidy up. I'm trying to make the best of this. It comes in waves. One of the things on my list was to reach out to my friends, and I didn't know if I was gonna be in the right mental space to do that yesterday or if I was gonna wanna just wait until next week. But I went ahead because I feel like my adrenaline has been going for the past 2 days, and I slept decently last night. I didn't get a full night's rest because I stayed up pretty late watching TV until midnight, and then was able to fall asleep after that. But I slept soundly. I stayed asleep through the night until I had to get up to use the restroom at 6, and then I think I might have just stayed up. Maybe it wasn't that early. Maybe it was until 7 or something. And even 7 is late compared to how early I've been waking up lately. I feel like I'm dragging a little bit, but I think I have more energy than I had yesterday at this time. But I don't feel fully rested. I don't know what to do about that. I think part of that is just my inability to rest. This is something that I've had to look at my collar. Jeez. Come on, get it together, Brittany. Part of it is just my inability to rest. This is something that another thing I've had to talk to my therapist about. I've been thinking about the things outside of my normal bills, right? I got a mortgage, I got, regular bills to pay, just like the average person. But there are some things that I'm sad that I'm gonna have to discontinue during this period because they're really part of my mental health and self-care routine. And they've really been things that have just made me feel good about myself that I'm gonna miss not having. But I don't know, I just still have this faith and belief that this is just a temporary moment, and it was a necessary moment to sort of get me out of that situation, because I would have stayed until I couldn't stay anymore, and it just wasn't a sustainable position. I'm really happy that I didn't wait until next week to reach out to some of my friends. They were really encouraging and really comforting. Yesterday I was exchanging voice notes with one of my friends, and I, just kind of shared the update with her, and her response back was really encouraging. So I appreciated that, and reminded me of how stressful this position has been. I had to take medical leave last year for burnout for this job, and so this is not it's not like I lost my dream job. It's I lost a job that was helping me pay bills, but I was miserable at the job, and it just wasn't sustainable. And it was a really toxic and unhealthy environment mentally. It was not a psychologically safe environment at all. This needed to happen. But this needing to happen doesn't change the fact that I still have bills to pay, right? So it was just nice to have somebody ground me in the reality of not that I wasn't already grounded in it, but it was nice to hear somebody else say yeah, this was not a healthy position for you. So sucks. You still need to figure out how to pay for life because life is expensive. But I'm looking forward to the mental clarity and relief I will eventually feel, and even into next week, because my last day will be next Friday. I'm just figuring it out day by day. I haven't felt any more tightness in the chest, anxiety that I was kind of feeling throughout the day yesterday. I mean, it's not even 9 o'clock yet, so maybe it'll come. But I've had waves of sadness. I'll be okay for a little while, but I don't want to live off of my savings if I don't have to. Coco says hello. Also, I have a cat that I have to feed. She just had her breakfast. So yeah, some of the things that I'm gonna miss. Therapy, of course. I actually have a therapy appointment next Wednesday. perfectly timed. I meet with my therapist once a month, so it'll be nice to connect. Although we did meet at the beginning of the month because our session for December was canceled because of the holidays. Break the news to her, and then that'll probably be the last time, because I pay out of pocket for that, but it's expensive, so I should save that money. And fortunately for me, I've been doing the work, and I've consistently been in therapy since 2021, so I feel pretty good right now. I'm in therapy really just for maintenance, not because I'm in crisis mode and I like need to be going every week or bi-weekly. I used to go bi-weekly, but right now I'm feeling I'm in a pretty good space with my mental health. So I'll let her know. And again, like I mentioned in the last clip, this is not a relationship like the one that I have with my therapist, where this is a relationship I'm going to sever forever. Like, I will let her know, like, I might be giving up the day and the time for now because I need to just save the money. Like, that's really the only reason. In the meantime, I will share with you all what I'm doing to sort of fill that void of not having a therapist, because I'm sure things will come up during this period of unemployment. I want to call it a leave period, so let's just call it that, during this forced sabbatical, during this divinely led sabbatical. But I'm sure things will come up that I might like the support of a neutral party. So I'll just, I'll be making notes and probably doing a lot of introspective work. I am not sad about leaving the job. I'm sad about losing my check and not having insurance. But even the things that I've written for myself, like, I am a firm believer of writing it down, seeing the vision. Even if I don't see the vision in front of me, I write it down, and I know that the path is going to be laid in the way of least resistance and in a way that's for my highest and greatest good. Like, I just at my core believe that. So that is really helping to ease a lot of my anxiety. But there are those human aspects, like even talking about it, I feel like, not like I'm going to cry, but almost like a lump in my throat is forming. I'll tell you what really got me choked up was writing that essay last night for that scholarship, because like I had to tell why I wanted to be a part of the program and like who I am, why they should give me money. It wasn't any gotcha type essay of like I got to do some real academic research or whatever. Like, I had to speak from my heart, and the first line of the prompt was like, speak from your heart. Tell us who you are. Tell us why you want to be here and how this will impact your journey and your growth for the future. And so I shared a little bit about like my full career trajectory and like how I studied one thing that I thought I was really interested in, and then I went on to have a career in a totally different sector. And there were aspects of the things that I learned when I was in school that have always just stuck with me. And a big part of it was food, green spaces. These are things that I've always been interested in, and it's filtered itself into my hobbies through like my house plants. And I really started collecting plants for real before COVID. Honestly, I had a small collection before I moved into my house. I was living with other people in like a group house in my little bedroom. I had a nice sized bedroom. It was way bigger than my bedroom now, but that was my only space in the house. Like, I just had that space, and I had a ton of plants in there, and that was like maybe 2017, 2018. And so this has been like almost a 10-year-long obsession with like my houseplants. And then over the past couple years, as I've had my own space outside to like grow things, it has evolved into like me wanting to really be able to cultivate my land, the little bit of land that I have in the city, so that I can grow my own food and all of these things. And there are barriers because I do live in a city. The soil that's on my property is not healthy. It's clay dirt, and that's a whole nother thing. So anyway, writing this I was about to call it a letter. It felt like a letter. I felt like I was writing a letter to myself, honestly. But in writing this essay, I started getting emotional when I was sharing stories about my grandparents, and like how this love that I've developed for like food and like farmers markets and being close to the earth has really developed from my family. I didn't really realize it. I think about moments like watching my grandfather tend to his collard green garden when I was young. When I was a kid, my granddad kept a garden, and like he maintained, like he had collard greens. My grandmother, had her like tomatoes and peppers and stuff. And I remember seeing these things, like this was just a part of my my childhood, and like my granddad had to put up a blue tarp around our fence in the backyard because people would hop the fence to steal his collard greens. It was like that. It made me think about like those types of things and just how this has always been a part of me, but it's just been something that's been tucked down. I think, people who, as city dwellers, I'm a city dweller, and other people who live in the city and are really disconnected from green spaces, we lose touch with the land. And this sounds like so indigenous medicine woman, like the way I'm talking right now. But seriously though, it's like a disconnection. And when you're reconnected, it's almost like so many memories come flooding back, or at least for me, I start working in my garden and I'm immediately reminded of all of these things that I saw when I was growing up. And then being on a deeper level, like I'm a Black American, so like my lineage is enslaved people, who were deeply rooted, no pun intended, in agriculture spaces and who built this country, but also really, really played a huge part in like the agriculture that is in this country as well. So I just kind of feel like it's in my roots and I'm getting back to that. And it's a way for me to connect to those ancestors whose names I don't know. The people who brought the seeds over and who hid them and stored them, and the people who, took the scraps and made the feasts. And this is just a way of like, for me, showing reverence. And that has made me the most emotional. I think is like having those moments where I'm thinking about that and thinking about those people and thinking about my grandparents. And it was one story in particular. Oh man. Sound like somebody outside shooting. That just took me out of that crime fit real fast. But it was one story in particular. It's just like this one part that when I wrote the essay and read it back, it made me start crying. A couple years ago, I think it was a couple years ago at this point, I interviewed my grandmother, and she's like my last living grandparent. And I wanted to do it because I wanted to also interview my grandfather, but he had dementia and I didn't get a chance to interview him before, like, he just couldn't function. So anyway, I really made a point to like interview my grandmother, and now I have time. I'll probably ask her if she's open to doing some like Zoom calls or something, so I can like get more information from her. But she was telling me this story, and I can't remember if this was when I was interviewing her. She was like very, she put a little fancy outfit on and her little headscarf or whatever, and so she was very, very professional with it. But then when I turned the camera off, I got more stories, and I wasn't even thinking like, oh, at least turn the camera back on and like record the audio, at least if she doesn't want to be recorded anymore. Because when I was filming, she was just just was very proper. As soon as I turned that camera off, I got the director's cut of a lot of stories. And I was talking to one of my aunts, and I was like, yeah, in that video where Gimme was talking about blah, blah, blah. And she was like, no, that was not in the video. And I'm like, oh, shoot. She was giving me backstories of people and who did what and who went where and why this person is like this. And so those are stories that I have now. But one of the things that I can't remember, it might be on the interview that I did of her, but she told me that her grandmother, I think it was her grandmother, had a pecan farm. I don't say pecan, that's the fancy Martha Stewart way of saying I say pecan. She had a pecan farm, and my grandmother was paying the taxes on it. My grandmother was paying the taxes on it, and that she had been maintaining this property, and it was so without her knowledge. And so I wrote about that. There was some other land on my dad's side, apparently, where there was some oil that was supposed to be on some land, and something happened with that too. And there's so many examples in American history. And I say I'm not separating like Black history from American history in this part of my story, because this is like, we are American history as well. This is so many people's, Black Americans' stories of like people my age whose grandparents or great grandparents had land that was stolen from them, right? Like who were, their family had land that was rich in natural resources, and it was stolen from them because this is I'm not about to get into it, okay? Maybe if I'm gonna keep it cute. I'm gonna keep it cute for YouTube, but maybe at some point I'll do a membership and I'll start having some director's cut conversations about the state of things and how I really feel. But anyway, it made me weepy because this scholarship I was applying for, they asked me to speak from the heart, and like I'm thinking about this whole layoff as like the first step in the new chapter of my life. And I know in a few of my other videos recently, or clips or whatever, I've really talked about like this being a part of a divine plan for my life, that I can, you know, write all these things out and say like, I want to experience this, I want to experience this, but I don't know how it's going to all be connected. And all I can do is trust that my desires are going to be fulfilled in the way that makes the most sense in the larger scheme of my life. So like I was saying in another clip, I believe it'll be in this video, I've climbed this ladder, right? I've reached the top of this ladder. I've reached the pinnacle of success in my career and all of these things in this current career that I'm in, but I know how empty my tank is, and I know how me reaching this place of status, right? Because this is not status that I care about. This is status that other people in this industry care about. I don't really care about this industry, the one that I'm currently in or about to exit from. And I know that my cup has been so empty because I'm seeking fulfillment elsewhere. And the elsewhere is simplicity, it is freedom, it is being connected to nature, it is being able to have my plants as my coworkers. I've been saying that for the longest. I'm telling you, I called this layoff in. So like I've called this in, you know, I've called the layoff in a way, but I'm saying, I'm not seeing it as a lack. I'm seeing it as the beginning of me receiving the other things that I've also called in. Like jokingly, not even jokingly, let me not even joke about it, you know. I have been saying like, if I could work with plants, like if I don't have to like work with people and I can focus my energy and time on plants, I would love that. I would love to do that. If I could have a test kitchen where I'm, you know, working, I don't need to be the chef. If I just got money like that at some point and, you know, or I get a sponsor and somebody want to fund my culinary education, I will also be willing to do that. I'm like Shaq. You know how Shaq has all these, he got the basketball career, but he's also like a sheriff in 15 states and a roller skater, and you know he does this and does that, and he's the all-state guy and he's selling cologne. Like I want to live that sort of life where I'm multidisciplinary. I don't feel like my life has to just be about one thing. And I think this is one of the things my friend was sharing with me yesterday. Like in our generation, we're millennials, we've been conditioned to just like go get a job. You go to college, you get a job, and then because that's what our parents did and our grandparents, you stay in that job for 30 years and then you retire. And like the times have changed, and we watch the younger generations who don't have access to the same education and stuff, or maybe they do, but it's just not as easily attainable. Like the cost of things are expensive. There's so many barriers, and the way younger generations are able to just create something from nothing, fund their lives, and still be happy. We're missing the happiness aspect, and like I want to regain that, but I also don't want to just be boxed in to only be able to do this one thing forever, you know. So I really feel like I'm on that path. I would love to commune more intimately with plant life, right? With my plants, with my house plants, with my garden, with just outdoor spaces, and like truly understanding what's going on outside, and then being able to take that, you know, vegetation or whatever, and then cook with it, you know, for myself or for my family or for my community, you know. And that's what I was saying, like having a test kitchen and being able to like play around with recipes and stuff. Like these are things that I'm thinking about and that I've written for myself, and I'm not exactly sure how it's all gonna like line up yet, but it's just kind of making sense now. Going back to those moments of frustration when I'm in these meetings with these people that I don't even want to be talking to, and I'm just like, dang, I wish I could be watering my plants right now. I wish I wasn't talking to you, and I wish I had a water hose in my hand watering my plants. You know, and it's I just feel like I'm in such a magical place when I'm doing that. Y'all, I had bumblebees sleeping in my garden this summer. And that was such a huge sense of accomplishment for me, because of the little bit of land that I have been able to create a space where some of the most important insects on this planet the pollinators feel comfortable being in my yard. I have created a hospitable place for them where they feel comfortable taking a nap. It was the most magical secret garden type. I was out there watering plants and I saw all these fat booty bumblebees. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, are they okay? They were asleep. And I'm like poking my finger around them and they're not moving because they were knocked out in the flowers covered in pollen. And I looked it up and apparently this is something that bees do. They find flowers and they go to sleep and then they take a nap because they're exhausted from collecting all of the pollen. And I was like, wow, they like my house. They love it here. They love it here. I've created a space where the bees love it here. So I'm really proud of that. I'm sitting at my table now and I'm looking out, I can see like my backyard and I'm looking at these birds. Like there have been a bunch of birds that have just been flocking to my yard lately and I've never seen this many birds. I want some crows. I don't see a ton of crows in my neighborhood, but I always hear these stories about like how people, I think my grandmother used to do this too, like she would feed the squirrels and stuff. A lot of like my connection to nature, I do credit my grandmother for some of that too, because she got me into birds. Like I remember when I was in elementary school, I came home from school. I think I got off the school bus, went in the house, and my grandmother had a parakeet. He was on the back porch or something underneath the laundry basket. And like the basket was flipped upside down to like act as a cage. And so she was like, oh, okay, I've been waiting for you to get home so we can go to the store. And so I'm like, well, what is this? She's like, this bird just like flew up on her fence, the front fence of our house. And she said she literally walked up to it. Maybe she had some bread or something in her hand and the bird just hopped in her hand and she took it in the house. And so I believe that was Tweety. And that's how we got Tweety. And so my grandmother kept birds when I was young. She's kind of always had birds. She don't have birds now. And then when I relocated from Michigan, she had a bird who was not doing well. He was like a senior citizen. He was a lovebird. And he came from my uncle who was in New Orleans, and he was displaced from Louisiana. He was impacted by Hurricane Katrina. So he moved to Detroit in, I think, 2005 to live with my family. And he bought my grandmother these lovebirds. And so it was two birds. It was a orange yellow bird. Like they had orange faces. I think they're called orange face lovebirds. Is that what they're called? But if you look that up, that's what the birds look like. One of them was blue with an orange face and one of them was yellow with an orange face. And so the blue one died. I think she was the lady because they used to have eggs in the cage like all the time. And with birds, when the ladies lay their eggs, they can get stuck sometimes. I'm wondering if that's what happened. I don't know what that's called, but eggs can get stuck while they're trying to lay them. And so she died. And so the lovebirds are supposed to be together, like they're called lovebirds for a reason. And so she had this single male lovebird who would just sit in the corner of the cage looking sad all day. And he got sick. And like, my grandmother, she was taking care of these animals, but like we was taking care of them in our way. We wasn't taking them to the vet, So the bird had this long beak. So he was in our family for a while. They got this bird around 2005. She had this bird from the point around the time my uncle arrived until I left Michigan, which was in 2015, because I took the bird with me. I adopted the bird from her. I took him when I saw that his beak was growing into his chest, which is a sign. If you see a bird that's doing that has that happening, that's a sign of usually liver disease. Liver disease causes bird beaks to overgrow. Anyway, I took this bird, took him to the vet. The vet was like, oh, he probably won't survive. This was a really traumatic procedure. They had to like shave his beak down and all of that stuff. Anyway, he ended up surviving maybe another, when I adopted him, which was maybe like 2014, he ended up living another maybe 2 years. I put him in my car, drove him up, and he was my, passenger prince in his cage with the seatbelt wrapped around it. He lived here with me until, I think he died in like October of that year. But he was an old man bird at that point, or he was, he was a good age. And he lived a good last bit of life. So anyway, I'm saying that to say like, I'm used to watching somebody feed the animals, throw seeds at the birds or throw, bread at the squirrels and stuff. And you know, my grandmother from the South, so no telling what kind of animal she was feeding when she was growing up. You know, like this is probably normal behavior for her. And then she moved to the city. Because when my uncle moved to the city, he was certainly trying to hunt them squirrels. And then she had to tell him, like, these squirrels eat baby diapers. Don't eat, don't eat these squirrels. But anyway, I'm just excited for this next chapter. I was saying I've been looking at these birds every morning because it's just more birds. There's this lady cardinal that comes and sits on the porch. Sits on the fence. And her man will come sometimes, but it's just been her solo. And I've seen her like every day. She's come multiple times a day. I think she's got a nest somewhere over here. But it's the two of them. I got two blue jays that come around. I don't know what the lady blue jay looks like. Maybe I've seen her. I've seen like a grayish blue one. She's kind of a light color. I definitely know what the lady red birds look like. Cardinals. And then a bunch of other birds, but I don't have crows. I want crows, and I don't want the crows to bully the other birds, but I just want to see crows because I hear all these stories online of like people feeding crows seeds, and then the crows will bring them presents. Like they'll just drop random tokens off for people. So I want to get a crow and train it to bring me dollar bills. I'll catch up with y'all in a little bit.